All right, so this week we're exploring the paranormal. So we're going to be taking a trip to Thomas House, which is outside of Nashville, which is a very well-known hot spot for the paranormal. We're going to do an overnight investigation, see what we catch, what we experience. For me, I'm very interested in paranormal, but I'm interested in it in how it relates to consciousness. What's really going on? What is everybody experiencing when they see ghosts, when they hear ghosts? Is there something that's actually being experienced? Is this some kind of larger psychological phenomenon? Are we all under some kind of mass hysteria or delusion? So what's really happening? We've all seen the ghost shows. Well, I would imagine most of us have, where they go into a haunted location, typically for one night or 2 nights. And they might catch something, see something move, see a door shut, hear an EVP. And it's all very compelling if it's true. I guess it's difficult as the watcher, as the observer, to know, is it all a hoax? Is it motivated by by money for viewerships? Is it just our minds playing tricks on us? Is it an over-exaggeration? Is it us thinking that every noise we hear is something paranormal? So is something really going on? That's really what I want to lean into this week. If there is something going on, if ghosts are real, I don't know that I can speculate what it actually is, but I think it does hint that there is something that exists outside of form. But I think the first thing we need to do is come up with some proof. So that's what I'm on a quest to do, is to find some proof on the paranormal. So I've always said when they do these shows that are 1 night, 2 nights, that's not a real investigation, certainly not a scientific investigation. What makes something actually scientific? Something's scientific when it can be replicated, when it can be reproduced. So when you watch on a show and you see a door open and shut, and it corroborates the claim, well, that's great, that's wonderful. But is it reproducible? Well, if you've only got it on tape for 1 night, who can tell? Now you've moved on to your next spot. So the question I would want to ask, or what I would want to explore, is whether this is a phenomenon that has any predictability, whether it's consistent, whether it's going to happen again, whether or not it continues to happen when everything else, the environment, surroundings are accounted for and controlled. So I've always said that maybe someday I'll buy a haunted location, a well-known haunted location, and set up my own investigation where I run cameras and every type of device used for detecting the paranormal throughout the house and outside of the house, control the external and internal environment, and see what I can catch objectively while trying to disprove or debunk any other possibility. So this Thomas House trip is to give me a little more validation, some personal experiences that are going to motivate me to take this to the next level. Now, I've had my own personal experiences that I can't explain. So there is that. And I do look at things very rigorously, very scientifically. So when I say that I've had paranormal experiences, keep in mind I'm willing to accept the possibility that me going crazy is a more probable scenario than there being an afterlife. I'm not saying there isn't an afterlife, but we do know people go crazy. We do know people hallucinate. We do know people are sleep deprived. We do know the brain can play tricks on us. We know that if we deprive these senses from the environment, that the brain will start to hear things, see things. It will try to cope. It will try to make sense of its surroundings. I mean, that's what a Rorschach test is, right? Like, we're all familiar with that, where it's like an ink blot and your brain wants to create an image out of it. But maybe that's not it. Maybe there actually is something. So that's what I'm exploring this week when we go to the Thomas house. We'll go a deep dive more into the paranormal. We'll go a deep dive into my personal experiences. And then we'll go a little bit deeper into quantum physics and neurology to try to explain what's really going on. So with the Thomas house, if I do experience something, well, that's very exciting, because what that's going to do is it's going to compel me to want to investigate more at the Thomas house and at other locations. So we're already looking at some other locations. So a lot really kind of rides on what happens at the Thomas house. But if I see a picture fly across the room in front of me, well, that's going to be great. That's going to cause me to want to investigate a lot further. I thought I would take a minute and tell you about some of my personal experiences. There's been quite a few, so I will narrow them down to some of the highlights. I'll explain them the best that I can. I would say probably one of the hardest ones for me to explain, because it's a lot more objective, more rooted in logic. I will say that typically when people have experiences when it's at night, or when they've been sleeping, or they wake up from a deep sleep, not to say that something paranormal may have happened or didn't happen, but there's too much of a likelihood that it was a dream, or that you were groggy, or that you're somehow being influenced by, because you're not completely awake. So let me kind of make that disclaimer, and now I'll explain this first experience I had. Michelle and I lived in a apartment in Costa Mesa, California. And at the time, I had it so that our television and surround sound system was all attached to this power strip that was plugged into the wall. That was plugged into a half-hot. And a half-hot outlet, if you aren't familiar, it attaches to a light switch. And typically you'll see this in like bedrooms, if you put like a light next to the bed, and the switch is by the door, and that way you can control the light when you're going in and out of the room. We had the light switch by the front door of the apartment, and so I set it up that way so that if we were leaving somewhere, I could quickly just hit the switch. It'd cut the power to the power strip, which would turn off the TV and the sound system. Well, I was in the bedroom, the TV was on, could hear it clear as day, and all of a sudden everything just turned off. And I walked out, and I looked, and I saw that not only did I hear it was off, I saw the TV was off. I asked Michelle why she turned it off. She said she hadn't. She was in the kitchen, she was actually cooking dinner, and she just cut her finger. So she was holding her finger over her head. And I was like, well, that's weird. And so I looked around, looked for the remote. We had a cat, so I was thinking, well, maybe the cat somehow jumped on the remote and hit the power. And I found the remote, it was on the coffee table. It didn't look like the cat had been near it, but I just kind of like dismissed it. It was like, well, I don't know how it turned off. So I started walking back to the bedroom, and I noticed that the light switch by the front door was in the off position, which seemed really odd to me, because if it had been in the off position the entire time, then no power would have been going to the outlet, and the TV could have never been on. So the fact that the TV was on, I could hear the noise, is proof that the switch must have been in the on position. So the only thing I could conclude is somehow the switch got put into the off position, since that was the position it was in now, and that's why the TV was off. You know, I didn't know how to explain it, didn't think a lot about it, and what made me reflect on it more was later that night I had a dream where my stepfather, who had passed away about a year earlier, had came and spoke to me. And I'm very dismissive of anything that happens in dreams, as I already stated. But what stuck out for me was that it was very, very vivid. And my stepfather and I, you know, we had our issues growing up. We didn't always get along. And he'd come back and kind of, we buried the hatchet. And told me everything was going to be fine. And I woke up and it felt so real that I actually got out of bed and I was looking around the room because I thought somebody was in the room with me. And I've never had a dream that was that vivid before. By itself, I would have thought nothing of it. What stands out is that it happened the same night where earlier that day the situation with the light switch happened. And so it seemed like a very, very odd coincidence to me. So that I can't explain. Now I'm going to talk about the house we own in Vermont. We moved there in 2015, bought the house. It was just built. We're the first owners. So there's no reason for anything paranormal to be occurring there. But during the time I've owned it, a lot of things have happened. I've experienced things. Michelle's experienced things. Paxton used to frequently talk about this child that's name was Bobby. And other people that have stayed there have experienced things. So some of the things that I experienced, and this is not an exhaustive list because there's so many, but the ones that stand out at the top of my head is one time when we, like Michelle and I would lay with Paxton to get him to fall asleep. So he was probably like 2 years old at this time. So he, you know, it was the alternative to the stroller or taking him in the car to get him to fall asleep. So we'd lay with him. Well, he had just got this new stuffed shark. Like a little stuffed animal, has like a little blanket attached to it. And he wanted that stuffed shark. And we searched everywhere. We tore his room apart. We looked outside of his room, looked in the different rooms in the house, and we could not find it for the life of us. And he wanted that thing really bad. And we eventually gave up. Went back to his room to get him ready for bed, and there was a shark laying in the middle of his bed. And we couldn't figure out, we knew there was no way we missed it. There's no way that both of us could have possibly missed it laying there right out in the open. And so we lay down with Paxton in bed, and I get back up because I forgot something downstairs. I go to the door, and the door is locked. We've been locked inside his room. And it's like one of those little locks where you have to turn it like with your fingers. And so it seemed very hard to believe that would have been turned without one of us knowing, or would have been turned accidentally, and it's never happened before. So that was definitely very odd. There was a situation one time where I got woken up by his baby monitor, and then I get up, went to his room, opened his door a crack, and looked in, saw him sleeping. And at this point, like, I was wide awake, and I'm a light sleeper anyhow. And I heard something behind me. It just sounded like a kid screaming bloody murder. But it was loud enough that my immediate reaction was to turn around as fast as I could to see what I was hearing. And then as soon as I turned around, it just stopped. That was really strange. Michelle used to hear things, like Pax and I would be at my mom's house, and Michelle would text me or call me, ask if we were home, because she heard someone upstairs. She would hear the garage door open, and obviously we weren't there. She would go up and investigate and couldn't find anything. There was one time my brother stayed there, and he was sleeping on the couch. He heard the cabinet doors in the kitchen opening and shutting. My stepmom, well, my dad and my stepmom were there. My stepmom was in the master bedroom by herself, and she saw the door handle to the bedroom out to the hallway. From the inside, she saw the door handle moving and trying to open by itself. She went to the door and nobody was there. She thought it was my dad, and there was another couple that was staying with them at the house, thought it was one of them playing a joke. Nobody was there. She went downstairs. They were all in the living room, and they all swore they hadn't been upstairs. My sister-in-law, she used to clean the house for me when I was short-term renting it, and she would experience things. She told me about one time where some of the I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a laundry soap or what it was, but she would have things that would fall off the shelf that she thought was kind of odd, because it didn't seem like it would easily fall off. And then one time when I was walking around with my brother and my nephew, showing him where some of the things had happened, things we'd heard, things we'd experienced. And we were in that area where it was the bedroom door to Paxton's room. We're in the hallway, we're standing in that doorway, and we heard a kid's voice, very, very clear. And Chris was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "Well, it was Alec." And Alec's like, "No, it wasn't me." And I look at my brother and I'm like, "Well, clearly it was." Like, it's kind of like, I understand he's saying it wasn't him, but what other explanation is there? And it's kind of interesting, because like, even when you're going through talking about paranormal things you've experienced, your reaction is not to assume that something is paranormal. Like, at least for me, like, my reaction is to immediately rationalize it, figure out like what the rational explanation was. And for me, it was obviously more rational that Alec was screwing with us, and it was really him that had said something. We were looking at Alec, and then we heard it again. And this time when we heard it, Chris and I made eye contact, like we looked at each other. So it was clear that we had heard something, and and there was nothing else to cue us other than that sound that made us look at each other. So we both heard something. It's clear it wasn't Alec, because we were looking at Alec when we heard it. It sounded like it was coming right in the middle of the three of us. And then as I was looking at Chris, we heard it a third time. It was very clear, child's voice. And so what's strange about it is it, left on its own, maybe it can be explained away, but you're talking about this location. This is where the door locked on itself, the bedroom where Paxton's stuffed animal disappeared, where Paxton talks about seeing someone named Bobby, a kid named Bobby, where I go to the door and I hear a kid screaming behind me. And now there's three of us that can all corroborate a story where we hear a kid's voice, what sounds like, between the three of us. And even as recently as this last Christmas, when I was back there with Michelle and Paxton, I'd left the house. So we have a mudroom that goes to the garage door, and I was backing out of the garage, forgot something, went to the garage door, and it was locked. So I was like, well, that's weird. Like, why would that door that I just come out of be locked? And so I go around, go to the front door where it's a keypad, go inside. Well, Michelle's upstairs. So when I left, she'd already headed upstairs to go take a shower. And And so I go around to the door and I open it. It's like a turn handle. And as I open it, the door unlocks. Like if the door is locked and you turn the handle, it automatically unlocks. So the only way to lock that door is to shut it. Well, it's either lock it and not turn the handle and shut it, or to shut it and then lock it once it's shut. And to leave the house, we clearly turned the handle to open the door, which would have unlocked the door. So after I left, the door would have had to have been locked after I left the house within 30 seconds, if that, of me figuring out I forgot something and trying to get back in the house. And then a few days later, I was watching TV on the couch and I heard from up the stairs, someone yell hello. And again, my reaction is not, oh, like that is something paranormal. My reaction is Paxton and Michelle are upstairs, so they must need something. So I go to the bottom of the stairs, I yell back up, I'm like, yeah, and I don't hear anything. I yell again, I'm like, did someone need something? Nothing. I go up the stairs, Paxton's door is shut, I open it up, and he's just sitting there on his iPhone. I asked him if he needed something, he said no. I asked if he had yelled down to me, he said no. So then I open up the door to our bedroom. Michelle's coming out of the bathroom, she'd just taken a shower. I'd asked her if she'd yelled downstairs, she said no. She did say that she had heard somebody yell hello, so she'd heard it too. So I can't explain it. And there's been a lot of stuff there. Those are the ones, like I said, stick out the best. But there's enough that it really makes you wonder. And it's not like when we leave that house, it's not like we're going crazy and we're hearing things and we're hallucinating, because when we leave the house, it doesn't happen. Like we don't live there anymore. So when we're at our other house, we're not experiencing anything. So it definitely seems to be tied to this house. So anyway, that's what I got for now. I've got more personal experiences that I'll talk about later that I can't explain. But the big thing right now is to get to the Thomas house, objectively investigate, see what I experience, see if I can experience something that motivates me to get more serious about investigating. And I think you'll see us in a lot more locations in the near future, doing a lot more investigations, trying to get to the bottom of what's really going on, and taking a more scientific approach to this rather than what you're currently seeing, which is on Sci-Fi Channel, the Travel Channel, where it's just a night or two. It's more for entertainment than any kind of scientific inquiry. All right, well, I'm excited, looking forward to it.